Well, welcome back, everyone, to our daily Bible study where we are continuing to study to show ourselves approved unto God, a workman worthy who needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Hallelujah. I'm excited today. We're going to continue our study in Revelations chapter 13. And if you want to turn there and follow along with us. And we have already prayed, asked God to help us and bless our time. Got my couple brothers, Gerald and Patrick Alex from Africa joining me. And we are going to go ahead and start with verse 3 today. We'll just refresh by reading 1 and 2 as well. But we're working our way through Revelations 13. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And so we want to go back to Daniel, and we're going to read in Matthew today as well, Matthew 24, Daniel chapter 2 today. We're trying to understand what these beasts are, what the heads are, and what the wound is, the deadly wound that one of the heads received. So we're going to continue. Let's go ahead and read verse 1, chapter 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So before we talk about the deadly wound, let's go back and talk about this beast. So it has 7 heads, 10 horns. It looks like a leopard, has the feet of a bear, and the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And we're going to go and see how the beasts in Daniel chapter 2, so sorry, excuse me. Excuse me, 1 second here. See if we have somebody trying to join. No, we don't. All right. So we are going to, I'm just going to try and join a couple more people in here. Quick, looks like we're getting somebody joining in. Welcome, brother. God bless you. Revelations 13, we've already started. We're talking about these 4, the beast that rises up out of the sea. So again, the sea, if we look in later in Revelations, it talks about the woman riding a beast upon many waters. And it says later that those many waters are multitudes, tongues, languages, nations. So all kinds of people. Welcome, Lena. God bless you, sister. Thanks for joining. And we're in 13 again, Revelations 13, talking about the 4 beasts. Well, the 4 beasts, they're 4 separate beasts in Daniel 7, but here it's one beast. So I think I got some insight on this yesterday in my studying. And so when we go back and, because it's so similar, it's actually the same aspects. It talks about this beast here in Revelations 13 as having the body. It says, let's just read it again, verse 2. It says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And so when you go back to Daniel 7, you see that it talks about this beast. It says the first of the beasts that he saw, and I think they came up out of the water too. Let's go back there real quick and read it. See if we can just go back this way. Nope. 1 second. Guess we're going to have to do it this way. All right, Daniel chapter 7. And it says, and 4 beasts came up from the sea. Again, these 4 beasts come up from the sea, diverse one from another. So here there are 4 separate beasts. And when you go back to Daniel chapter 2, you have an image. And we're going to go back and read that. But let's first talk about this for a second. Verse 4, it says, the first one was like a lion. So there you have the lion's mouth on this beast in Revelations 13. But here, it's the whole beast is a lion, and he has wings. And that looks like that's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. Because in Jeremiah, in 4, 7 through 13, it talks about the lion is going to come from the thicket. We know this is talking about Nebuchadnezzar there, that he comes down against Jerusalem and destroys Jerusalem and takes captive the people, Judah, all the Jews, for 70 years. They are exiled in Babylon for 70 years. And it says he's a lion there, and Nebuchadnezzar is a lion there. And so here's the first beast is a lion here, and when we go back to Daniel chapter 2, the head of gold, that's Nebuchadnezzar. That's the first kingdom in the statue back in Daniel chapter 2. So it looks like these are the same, saying the same thing, just in a different way. So let's go back to, and then, well, let's just continue to read here. The second beast was like unto a bear. It was raised up on one side, or it had dominion on one side. It says it can be translated that way. And it had 3 ribs in its mouth. We talked about this yesterday. If you want to go back and read, watch the video from yesterday, what that is talking about. And after this, I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. And it had 4 wings, and it had 4 heads. And we talked about how that's Alexander the Great, how when he died, he had 4 generals that he didn't have. His son got killed or died, and so he had no heir, and he gave the kingdom to his 4 generals, which then they separated up the Grecian Empire into 4 places. So that's what the 4 heads are. That would be what the 4 wings stand for. The 3 ribs in the mouth of the bear, which was the second beast, looks like that's talking about when the Medes and the Persians took over Babylon, which was the first kingdom, the eagle, and the lion with the eagle's wings. It says that the Persian bear took over. It took over Media, and then it took over Lydia, and so those are the 2 other main regions, and Babylon. So that could be the 3 ribs, or the 3 ribs could be. It took over Mesopotamia, which is a region, and the Egypt's Nile Valley, and also India's Indus Valley. It took over those 3 regions. So sorry. So yeah, those 3 ribs could be either one. It says it was had 3 ribs in its mouth. It was told to go and devour much flesh. We see that in verse 5 of Daniel 7 here. And so we see a progressive growing of the kingdom. So Babylon is ahead of growth. Let's just go back and read chapter 2 now in Daniel, where you have this image that Nebuchadnezzar sees this dream. So I'm just going to summarize the first part, and we'll start reading in 26. But Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He doesn't remember the dream. He knows it was a troubling dream. He goes to his magicians, his wise men. He says, "You guys, you need to tell me the dream and the interpretation." And they're like, "Well, we can't tell you the interpretation unless you tell us the dream." He says, "Well, if you don't tell me the dream itself, I'm going to have you all killed." And Daniel says, wait. Let me pray. Let me ask the God of heaven. He can reveal dreams. And then he does. God tells Daniel the dream, and then he also gives him the interpretation of the dream. So the wise men are not killed. and Daniel's put into control over the whole kingdom. But let's start reading in 26. It says, "The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof?" His dream was this great statue, head of gold, arms and chest of silver, belly and thigh of brass, and legs of iron, feet and toes of iron mixed with clay. That's the dream. That's the vision he saw in his dream. He didn't remember it, but now Daniel's going to tell him. Verse 27. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, "The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king." They can't do it. But, verse 28. Okay, we're in Daniel 2, verse 28. "But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days." What shall be in the latter days? Remember that. "The dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mayest know the thoughts of thine heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay." Excuse me. Thou sawest tell that a stone. Thou sawest, he was looking at it, and tell that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces. Verse 35, "Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth." Okay, this stone is Jesus coming down, rolling down the mountain. He smites the image. The image stands for the four main kingdoms in the earth, and how they're actually going to be, those are the kingdoms that we see in this Revelations 13 beast. We see the feet of the bear, we see the body of the leopard, we see the mouth of the lion. Okay, so we see all of these kingdoms, and these kingdoms. First of all, let's go ahead and read the interpretation here. Verse 36. "This is the dream, and I will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings. For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And whithersoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold." So he's the head of gold, King Nebuchadnezzar. "And after thee shall arise another kingdom, inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth." So there's a second kingdom coming. It's inferior to his, but yet it gets more territory than his. But it's inferior in quality. And then there's a third of brass. So you see there's a decline in the value of the metal. Gold, silver, brass, steel, steel mixed with clay. So that's what is showing the degrading of kingdoms over time. And now we're going to be living in the kingdom of steel and clay. So very degraded, very much less value than the head of gold. His kingdom was actually of much value in it was a very quality kingdom, you could say, in Nebuchadnezzar's day. But then there's a slowly degrading over time. Exactly what we see with many other verses in the Bible, that evil men will wax worse and worse. The love of most will grow cold because of the increase in wickedness. The Spirit clearly says in the latter days, many will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. We see that evil is going to continue to increase until God is going to finally judge this world again, just like it did back in the days of Noah, as the wickedness increased till the point where finally there was only Noah and his family left that were righteous. And so God had no choice but to wipe out all of the earth and start over with Noah and his family, right? Same type of thing is going to happen again. People are going to get worse and worse until they're actually going to try to kill all Christians. That's the last 3.5 years, the Great Tribulation, when they're going to try to wipe out Israel and wipe out all Christians, all the Jews and all the Christians. And that's what's actually going to finally, again, bring Jesus back and start over again with the church ruling and reigning for 1,000 years and then forever. So he's finally going to get rid of all wickedness once and for all. All right. So anyways, going back to Daniel 2 here. So this head of gold, that definitely resembles this first beast in Daniel 7, which is coming up out of the sea, which looks like it's coming up out of the nations of people. And it has it looks like a lion. It has the wings of an eagle. So it's very ferocious at first, and it's very swift like an eagle. It goes far and wide, take control, and ferocious. But then it's brought and tamed, you could say. That lion was tamed, and it was given the heart of a man, made to stand on his feet like a man, and given the heart of a man. So it was brought back, and the wings, the feathers were plucked off, showing it had lost its swiftness. Well, that's exactly what happened to the kingdom of Babylon. Remember when Nebuchadnezzar was humbled, he was made to eat grass like an ox for 7 years. He was humbled, and then he realized, came back to his senses, that there was a God in heaven, and he was able to humble those who needed to be humbled. And then, of course, we see that Babylon ceased to exist under the control of Nebuchadnezzar, but the Medes and the Persians came in and took control of that territory. So Medes and Persia is Iran in that area, and they came and they absorbed the kingdom of Babylon. Okay, so now we don't just have the kingdom of Babylon ruling the world. Now we have the Medes and the Persians absorbing the kingdom of Babylon as well as their land and ruling the whole world. That's a world dominating power. And that is the belly, the arms and the chest of silver. So it's it's not as quality of a kingdom, maybe not as righteous maybe as a kingdom. I'm not sure if that's what it's talking about for sure, but it's definitely degraded in some way or fashion. And now it's a kingdom of silver, but yet it's a bigger kingdom. And they rule and reign. That's Cyrus the Great, who comes in and takes over Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, and his kingdom. And so now you have those kingdoms ruling for some time. I should have the dates. But then you have Alexander the Great, and he comes out of Macedonia area in Greece. And he then takes over Medo-Persia, also Babylon. So he's ruling in greater amount of area, but yet he is it's a degraded again. He's just brass. That's what resembles him, is the brass kingdom or bronze kingdom, which is a similar metal. Some translations translate it bronze. It's really the same metal. It's copper and zinc, or copper and another metal. I forget it. Anyways, beside the point. And then you have the third kingdom, and that is the kingdom of iron. And we know that that is the Roman kingdom. Very, very clear that that's the Roman kingdom. And interesting what it says about the Roman kingdom. Let's see if we can go down and read some more. Let's read here in Daniel chapter 2. Let's keep reading. Let's see, where did we leave off? Oh, let's actually go and read this interpretation again. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And whithersoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another king, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom, verse 40, Daniel 2, verse 40, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all kings, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. So remember that, break in pieces, the iron break in pieces. That's going to be significant later. So this iron kingdom breaks in pieces and bruises. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. Remember, iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. That is the Roman kingdom. That is the revived Roman kingdom that we see here in Revelations 13 with 7 heads. That's this beast rising up out of the sea again. Remember in Daniel 7, these beasts rise up out of the sea, rise up out of the nations. But here we have this fourth kingdom. Now the fourth kingdom, it subdues all of Babylon, all of Greece, and up to the Persian Empire during its time, and even more kingdoms around the Mediterranean Sea. It ruled all the kingdoms around the Mediterranean Sea, so much as it called the Mediterranean Sea the Roman Lake. So whether this in Revelations here we see it rising up out of the sea again, is it talking about the Mediterranean Sea area, that this beast rises up out of one of the nations around? That's another possibility. Around the Mediterranean Sea, one of the countries around the Mediterranean Sea, that's a possibility as well. But it looks like it matches up with later in Revelations when it says this beast is sitting on many waters that the woman is riding, and it says that those waters there are multitudes, tongues, nations, and tribes, or something like that. So nations, all kinds of people. So they're peoples. All right, so here we have in Daniel 2, we have 4 different metals. In chapter 7, we have 4 different beasts. And in Revelations 13, all of these beasts are incorporated into one beast. Okay, so that's what we're seeing. It is a progression, how now they're all under one world government, and the Roman 7 heads of the beast symbolize the Roman government, and we're going to talk about that now. So that's how you have this iron teeth. Here it's iron legs in Daniel chapter 2. In Daniel chapter 7, it's iron teeth. And let's look at that again. So here in Daniel chapter 2, it says it's breaking in pieces and subduing all things. That's talked about the legs of iron here in Daniel chapter 2. But if you go to Daniel chapter 7, it talks about in verse 7 of Daniel 7, it says, and this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. Remember that word? He said, in Daniel chapter 2, it says that the iron was strong, right? Go back there one more time. Oh, man. Daniel chapter 2, and read that again. Hold on. Thank you for your patience, guys. I'm doing my best here. Daniel chapter 2, and let's see, where was that? Is this Daniel? Yeah. And it was down around verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all things shall it break in pieces and bruise. So showing the strength of iron there in the iron kingdom. And when you go up to Daniel 7, verse 7, he says that same thing again. After this I saw in night vision, behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So here you see that the iron kingdom has iron teeth too. It break in pieces again, remember, stamps the residue. And then we go to Revelations 13, and you see that it has 10 horns. Here it says that in Daniel 7 that it has 10 horns, remember? It had great iron teeth, it devoured, break in pieces, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So here we have 10 horns again on a beast. It's the iron beast. And then we go to Revelations 13. And 1, and I saw upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea again. He's up out of the sea again, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Upon his horns, 10 crowns. In chapter 12, we saw the same beast, but the crowns were on the head itself, showing the perfect dominance of Satan himself. We're told that that beast is Satan, and that he has perfect dominance over the whole world. That's what the 7 seems like it represents there. But there are 7 different governments of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire has been the empire on earth that has lasted the longest. So showing the strength of it, right? It's the longest lasting empire. And I wish I had the dates, but I'll get those and bring them tomorrow. That it ruled. But it ruled for over 1,000 years, I believe. Anyways, so here in verse 2, we see the same beast, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth was the mouth of the lion. And remember how the first beast in Daniel chapter 7 was the lion, and was showing the ferociousness of the lion. So I think that's what it's showing here, that this beast is ferocious like a lion. He's not intimidated by anything. He's the king of the jungle, right? He has the feet of the bear. Not quite sure why it's the feet of the bear. I'm going to look into that more. But he has the body of the leopard. Why it has the body of the leopard, not quite sure why that. But you can see that they're all incorporated into one beast now, showing that the head, and it says, and I saw of his heads, let's see. Doesn't say the head there. Yeah. Okay. Verse 1. He had 7 heads and 10 horns. And later it's going to tell us in chapter 17 what those 7 heads and 10 horns represent. And it says that it's 7 hills and 7 kings. So let's go there and read that quick if we haven't yet. I don't know if we read that yesterday, but let's go there and read that. And that's in Revelation 17. And where is that? Verses okay, in verse 10, let's start with verse 9. Verse 9, and this is Revelation 17, verse 9, it says, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth." If you go back to verse 1, it's talking about the woman. Verse 4. "And the woman was arrayed," verse 3, "and so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast." Same color. It's a red beast, full of names of blasphemy. Remember, it had the name of blasphemy on its 7 heads in Revelation 13. And having 7 heads and 10 horns. Same beast. Now the woman is riding it. We're going to talk about who that woman is. But that woman is riding this beast system. And the beast stands for the Antichrist system and the Antichrist himself. The Antichrist kingdom and the Antichrist himself. And the woman was arrayed in purple. We'll talk about that in a minute. And that is the harlot church. Okay, we'll just say that for now. The harlot church. And we're going to go into that in more detail when we get to chapter 17. For now, I want you to see who this 7 heads, 10 horned beast is. I want you to see this clearly. Verse 12 says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings." Let's go back to verse 10 first. "And these are 7 kings." Verse 9. "And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and they are 7 kings." So who in